Hi all, in this video we're going to do the Technical Graphics Ordinary Level 2019 question 2. So that is the Ellipse question. So this year you can see the question is a drawing of the Darth Vader helmet. Okay, so it's based on a semi-ellipse and different circles. So let's get started. So in this question, like most of our ellipse questions, where we're going to start is with the ellipse itself. It's based on that question. So we're going to try and get that drawn. Now, if we look closely to the question, it tells us the size of the ellipse itself. It says BO is half the major axis of the ellipse and is 80 millimeters long. Now we can see that on our drawing here to the right hand side where it is marked off at 80 millimeters long. It also tells us that AO is half the minor axis and that is 60 millimeters long. And again, we can see the 60 millimeters at the top left marked in our drawing here. So we can then see that the semi-ellipse ABC, okay, is the top of the Darth Vader helmet, and that's where we're going to get started. So with this question then, we're going to start off by drawing in our axis. Okay, so I'm going to draw this right through the middle of the page. So just creating a cross in the middle of the page. Now, the first thing we're going to do is mark off this major axis. Again, we can see from the question, it is 80 millimeters high. So I'm going to mark that off at 80. Okay, and we're going to put a wee bit of colour on that then as well, just so that we see the difference of the axes, because they're the main part in this question. So that there is the major axis, and I'm going to label that. Okay, just in case we are confused later on. So that's the major axis. Our next thing to do, again, we look at the question, is put in our minor axis, so we can see that that is 60. So I'm going to mark off 60 then here, both sides. Okay, we know that that is the minor, so it's 120 altogether. And I'm going to use my T-square then and draw that across, all the way 120 across. And again, just for clarity, I'm going to mark up here that that is the minor axis. So we can then go ahead and we can label these different parts. Okay, so we were told that the ellipse A, B, C, that was the semi-ellipse, and O was the center. So I'm going to just mark that as well. Now, what do we know about this? Well, we know that the minor or the major axis would continue on down this way. Okay, so again, I'm just going to put some few little dotted lines there. So it is 80 high up here, so it's going to come down 80 here as well. And again, we'll just mark that for you just so you can see there. So that would be my full ellipse. We're only asked for the top half. So at this stage we can go ahead and we can draw the ellipse. Now what we're going to be using in these videos and that we use all the time is our trammel method. So I think it's the easiest and quickest way and most accurate way to draw in an ellipse. So how do we do the trammel method? This is probably the hardest part to remember in the question. Well, what we're going to do is we need a small piece of paper. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to mark off different points. The first thing I'm going to mark off is point P. That's at the very end. I put this trammel along the major axis and I mark off point P. Point P is the end, and that point P is the point, and I'll write this down, point on curve. Okay, or the point on the ellipse. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to mark off the axis that we see this intersecting. So we can see here the axis that's coming through the middle of this page is the minor axis. So I'm going to use my red pen, same as the minor axis, and I'm going to write down minor axis. So there's no confusion. I'm not using ABCs or letters or anything. I'm just writing down exactly what it is so I can't get confused. So we had the trammel against the major axis with point P at the end of the major axis. What we're now going to do is move the trammel and we're going to put point P then, the point of the curve, at the end of the minor axis, just like so. And again, we're now going to mark off the axis that we see cutting across the page, and this time we can see it's the major axis. So I'm going to mark off that. I'm going to write down major axis. Okay. Again, just to go through that, so we put the trammel now on the minor axis, point P at the end, which is the point in the curve, and we mark off the axis I see cutting through, and it's the major. Now, once you've that done, we'll have our trammel, we'll have point P, the point in the curve, the major and the minor axis. This triangle is going to help us to draw this ellipse. So once you've that done, the next job we need to do is we need to draw the ellipse itself. So what we're going to do here is, the easiest way again to remember it is we need to keep the major on the major, the minor on the minor, and point P is going to be a point in the curve, right? And again, what I remember is if I want to draw the curve around this side, my triangle is going to go across the quadrant below that on the major axis. So if I want to draw up here, I'm going to keep the major on the major axis, the minor on the minor axis, just like so, and point P is going to be a point in the curve. So I'm going to mark that off. To start off with, the more points we have, the more accurate it's going to be, okay? And what I would say is, if you can put in maybe, I'd say about 6 or 7 points per quarter is more than enough, and it should give us a nice, neat, accurate ellipse. So again, you can see all we're doing is rotating this triangle around, keeping the points on the axis, so minor on minor, major on major, point P is a point in the curve. So minor on minor, major on major, point P is a point in the curve. So you can see I'm bringing it all the way around. We've got loads of points there. And you might notice then here, so I seem to have probably put the first one up too high up. No problem. If we feel like that we need another dot there to help us draw it, we just go back, put the major on the major, the minor on the minor, and point P will be a point on the curve. So that's the great thing with using the triangle method. We can get as many points into our ellipse as we like, okay? Once you've that done, all we're going to do now is have a game of drawing the dots. So we're going to draw these all the way up through each of the points. Try and keep it in one nice clean curved line. But this again just takes a little bit of practice. Once we've one side done, we're going to do the exact same with the other. So what do? Keep the rules the same. Major on major, minor on minor, point P is the point in the curve. I want to draw this quadrant, so I'm resting my triangle over the quadrant underneath. Simple as that. So lining up those, make sure we're happy with them, and mark off my points. So minor on minor, major on major, point P is a point in the curve. So again, about 6 or 7 points is more than enough. If you feel that you're going to be a messy drawer and the curves are never neat or tidy like we want them to be, then add in 1 or 2 more points, okay? There's no problem in that. You can have as many as you want, okay? And once you've that done, again, we've now all the points, and we can go ahead and draw in our ellipse to the right hand side. So again, nice and neatly, as neat as we possibly can, all the way around through the different points back down to the end of my minor axis. So at that stage then, folks, that is the ellipse for this question complete. So that is the top of the helmet of the drawing. Once we've this done, we just have a few other of the details in the drawing to do. So we're going to move on now to the rest of the outside of this Darth Vader helmet. So again, if we look closely at the question, we can see that there's 2 measurements to the right hand side. We have a 62 and an 18, which again adds up to 80. So it fits inside that big circle, as we can see, of radius 80 all the way around. So we're going to mark off those 62 and 18 on our sheet. So again, I'm going to put down my set square, and I'm going to mark off my 62 and my 18 again, which brings me up to 80. So I can draw those lightly all the way across. I'm going to just take my triangle before we forget. It's good habit, folks, to just hand up the triangle with your drawing, just so that people aren't wondering how did you do the question or anything like that. So we're going to take that, and let's just stick it up here to the top of the sheet. So we're going to go back here. So again, we came down 16, came down 18, okay? And how far apart is it? Well, we can see it lines up with the outside of our 80 circle. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in that 80 circle. So I put the point of my compass at O, all the way up to B. And again, this circle comes all the way around. Okay, so that's the outside circle. Now, once we have that, we can bring down these side edges, so we can see that from our question. So they come all the way down here, and it's giving me the end of, or the sides of this Darth Vader helmet. So we can see then on the left hand side we go from A down to where the side edge hits the 18mm line. So I'm going to draw that down, and obviously it's a mirror image, so I'm going to do the exact same from point C. So that's that part. Next, if we look closely at the question, we came down 18, and there's a curve in here, and we can see it from the question, it's radius R. But we weren't told what that radius is. But if we look to the right hand side, we know that quarter circle has to fit into this, the side down 18. So therefore that means that the radius will have to be 18mm. So we know, again, because this measurement is down 18, to get a quarter circle in here, the center is going to have to be 18 away. Okay, so we're going to mark off 18mm here. Okay, and I'm going to draw my line down just so I see the points of contact, and I'm going to do the exact same on this side. So there's 18 there, and then again we've got our points of contact on this side. Okay, so once we've that done, we can go ahead then and draw in our two arcs. So again, put my pointer might comes down on my center, open it up to the edge, and we're going to swing this arc all the way around, so we've got a nice radius 18. Okay, I'm going to do the exact same thing to the opposite side now. Okay, and again we're swinging that all the way around. So that's giving us my two radius 18s, and again all we have to do now is draw a straight line across the bottom here just to tidy up this. Okay, so in between. So that's why we drew those straight lines down, because we found these, what I would call a POC, the points of contact. We would remember those from our circle question. So it's just a good habit to get those in. Once we're down in these corners, we can see from the left hand side from the question, if we look closely, there's a radius 50, and they are from the very bottom left hand and right hand corners where are the outside squares outside the 18. So it's from this corner here, we can see that in the question we have a radius 50 that's going to go in between some of these points. Now we don't have exactly where it's going to finish, so we're missing a line in here, but that's fine. We can put in the circles first and we can go back over them then later on. So I'm going to mark off here my radius 50, so I'm going to use that on my set square. And again, we're dealing from these two corners. So first of all, I know it's going to be heavy down from the bottom, but I'm not sure where it's finished. I'm just drawing that lightly up there. Okay, it's just so I don't forget it later on, and when I'm down in this corner, I'm as well try and put those in when I have them. So again, I know it's heavy this part down here, but I just don't know where it's going to stop. But we'll draw it all the way up there. So once you've that done, we've kind of got the bottom part of this nearly done. We're going to move all the way back up here now and worry about the top of the helmet and the eyes. So to start with the eyes then, we're going to have to draw this strip down the top of the helmet first. So we can see it's 10mm wide. So that means it's going to be 5mm either side of my major axis, my center of this helmet. So I'm marking 5 either side, and I'm drawing it lightly all the way down. We're going to need that later on towards the bottom of the drawing also. So how far down do we go, or what's happening? Well, that strip we're not sure yet. We've got these curves coming up here at the top of the helmet, but the first thing we can do is we can put in these eyes. So we can see that there's two circles, left and right, which are the eyes, that are tangential. They're touching this edge just here, okay? And they're right on the center line. If we look across in the question from A to C, we can see that the eyes, the circles for those are on that. And again, if we look at the question, we can see that they're radius 14. So because we know they're radius 14, we know they're along this line, and we know they have to touch these lines. We know that the center of the circle has to be 14 from these lines, okay? Because it has to be that for the radius. So I'm going to mark off that, and make sure we mark off accurately. It's 14, it's not 15 or anything else. So there's 14 one side and 14 the other side. So again, I'm just going to mark those down. We're going to need those later on, okay? So again, I can see where the 14s are, and I'm going to take my compass and draw those radiuses in. Put the point that comes down where the center is, open it up to the edge where these light lines are coming down, and again, nice and neatly, I'm going to draw in my circle. So a lot of these ellipse questions, folks, has a lot of compass work. So it's good that we get used to the compass, especially when we want to do question 6, our circles question as well. So there's the 2 eyes then done. Okay, nice, neat, crisp circles. Now, once we've that done, the next thing we are going to do is we can put in these outside circles. And again, if we look closely, just at the bottom of the circles where the center line hits the bottom of the circle, there's a light line across here. So we can see that light line here. We can see this now in our question. And again, we can see from our question here that there's a radius 30, okay? And again, if we look really closely to our question, we can see the radius 30 line joins up to the bottom of the eyes, the center line of the eyes. So it's right down here. So we're going to go from here and here. So I'm going to mark those for you. We have to go from those 2 points, radius 30. So I'm going to open up my compass to radius 30. Okay. And again, I'm going to pop down my point of my compass, so right down at the end, the bottom of the eye, and again I'm going to draw a curve all the way along. So where do I know it starts and stops? Well, again, if we look closely here to the question, we can see the bottom of the eye lines up from the right hand side. It joins up to the curve there, and the top of the curve ends up on the center line. So again, just to go through that, the top of the curve stops at the center line, and it's stopping here at the bottom of the eye. So I can go ahead then and draw that in heavy. Okay, again trying to get our compass work as neat as we can. Okay, so all the way around and stopping here. We're going to do the exact same thing on the left hand side. Okay, so nice, neat, crisp circles all the way around. Okay, should match up nice and neatly and stop right at the end. So once you've that done, we've got where the eyes are. We can go ahead or go back again then, and we can draw in our strip, because now we know where it finishes. It finishes at the top of the eyes. So I can draw that as a heavy line, and I can draw this down as a heavy edge. Okay, so we're getting there now. Once we've got these points down here, okay, we can see that we need to join those back, and they get joined down to the bottom corner, the very outside here. So again, I'm going to line up my set square from the bottom here of the curve where it comes through the bottom of the eyes, and it's going to go right down here to the outside here. We're not going to draw it all the way to the outside. We're stopping as it intersects that bottom curve. Okay, so we're going to do the exact same thing on this side. So from the bottom of the eye all the way down to the bottom of that curve. Okay, so once we've this done, the next thing that we can start doing is doing the inside of the mouth guard, I suppose here we'd call it. So when we look at that, we can see we already got this strip along the middle. We know where the bottom is. The bottom is on this 18mm edge. Okay, we've got that line here. So we can see again, if we look at the question, that we've got a measurement of 12mm. Okay, so that's from the bottom of the eyes at the top here of this, we have to measure down 12. Okay, so I'm going to mark off that. So there we go. So that's down 12, and I'm drawing a light line across. Okay, so once you've got that point, you can actually go ahead then, and we can draw in this part of the inside rectangle, if you will. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw that. Now we can see, while we've got that inside rectangle, we have the triangle coming down here. Now you can see there's a 10mm just out here, okay, on the left and the right, but we've no measurement to how far the next one is. Okay, so again, we were told 10 on this side, 10 on this side, so that is for the kind of darker grey strip. So we know that there's one line coming up here, there's another line coming up here, but we don't know where this finishes. But if we look closely to the question, we can see that there's a 60-degree angle line. Okay, so that 60-degree angle line is from where this 12mm intersects the outside of this strip here. So I can draw, using my set square, my 60-degree set square, I can draw that line, a heavy line, all the way down to the bottom edge. Okay, our 18mm line here. And I'm going to do the exact same now on the left hand side. To do that, we're going to tilt it, so rotate it all the way around. Find this 12mm line down where it intersects the strip along the center, and I'm going to draw that again all the way down to the edge. Okay, so once you've that done, we can draw it in heavy all the way along the bottom. Okay, and then you can see where the strip lines is. So this is 10mm over, but we weren't told how far over it is from here. We had to use the angle, the 60 degrees in here. So I'm going to go ahead and draw those two strips here in. Okay, and once you've that done, we're pretty much finished the question. We've one last job to do, and that's just tidy up these curves here at the bottom, which were at our radius 50. So when we drew them, we didn't have this line coming in here, so we didn't know where they were finishing. But now that we do, we're going to go back and draw them in. So remember, we started from the outside corners, we opened it up to radius 50. Okay, and we were able to draw in that. So where are we going to stop? We're now stopping right at this edge, just here. So we're going to get nice, crisp curves just there. And we're going to do the exact same thing on this edge. So again, all the way to the line that we just put in there. Okay. At that stage, folks, that is the question fully complete. That is the Technical Graphics 2019 Ordinary Level Question 2, our ellipse question in the shape of the Darth Vader helmet. So hopefully, folks, this video helps you with your homework and your revision of this question. Good luck.